Hey everyone. Hey everyone. Welcome back to our season 4 Insecure episode 7 Lowkey Trippin review. I am as always Be Right Breeze.
And I am the only Genia Wright.
And you guys, we are here to talk about this episode that focused on our girl, which I know many of y'all do not like right now, Molly. So you know how we do. We are going to jump in. My sister's going to give us an amazing review, recap of the actual episode, and then we're going to jump into some questions.
Okay, I'll kick it off, sis. So you all remember at the end of the last episode, we saw Issa avoid Molly at a restaurant. Well, we find out at the top of episode 7 that Molly saw her. Okay. Molly saw Issa see her at the restaurant and then run away. Okay. And all of this happened as Molly is planning for a trip. She and Andrew are actually heading to Mexico for a nice weekend together. And she's packing, she's getting ready, and she's venting to Andrew about, Issa running away from her at the restaurant. They both agree, though, that the trip would not be about Issa, that they were going to, leave all of that relationship drama behind.
Leave that in Cali. We're going to
leave it in Cali.
Okay.
And so everything's going well. Would you say, sis?
We're crossing the border.
Yeah, we're crossing the border. Okay. And so everything is going well. And just before it's time to cross the border, Molly gets a message from her assistant, and it turns out that there is a meeting on the morning that their flight is supposed to depart. And, Molly has to change up her morning, whatever. She still made her flight, but it was frustrating for her to not know about the meeting. And so she kind of says to her assistant, what happened? Why didn't I know about this meeting in advance? I wasn't planning for it. The assistant apologizes. Molly has the meeting. She makes the flight. She gets on the flight with Andrew. They go to Mexico, and they really, really overall had a very nice time. It was nice for us to be able to see their relationship really be in a very comfortable rhythm, and so part of you was celebrating their wonderful rhythm, but then the other part of you was she couldn't forgive Issa, and Issa was just as wrong as Andrew in episode 6 in terms of the two of them being in touch with each other behind Molly's back, and so clearly she has forgiven Andrew, okay, because they're heading out on vacation and they're having a grand old time. They actually are spending the time in Mexico with Andrew's brother and his wife. Their name is Victor and Lydia. And let me just say, I find them to be well cast. I was like, these actors are great.
They did a great job.
They did a great job. The brother is he's kind of anal. You see that immediately. He's got them booked to the T, the whole trip. Yeah. And the sister-in-law, Lydia, she is just like a fun, loving chick. You can already tell that she's like a go with the flow, let's get a drink, we're on vacation type of girl. And you love her immediately. She seems great. And, Andrew and Molly are having a little bit of push and pull with them because of how scheduled Lydia and Victor like things. Molly really wanting a break, and her and Andrew really wanting some quality time together. So they don't keep the program completely. They do have some downtime. Unfortunately, during one of their times where they were hanging out as two couples, we did see, a little bit of race conversation come to play, and it did not go well. Molly goes to get a towel from the towel girl at the counter, and the towel girl gave some white people towels right before Molly came up without asking to see their key cards to the hotel. And Molly asked for a towel, and she needs to see a key card. And Molly called her out on it. And Molly was in the midst of calling her out on it when the brother, Andrew's brother, Victor, walks up and shows his key card so Molly can get the towel. But the truth is, Molly was not in the wrong at all. So, but she carried that frustration.
Let me tell you, I rewound that part several times because I wanted to make sure. I said, no, hold on. Did she not see this? Like, I wanted to see, and I said, honey, Molly, your anger is justified, honey. It's
Absolutely.
justified.
Absolutely. And you know what? Even if, you are a person who has a rule that you have to enforce. Okay. You got to get the key cards before you show a towel. Listen, this was not a big deal. This was a towel for a person that was clearly frolicking on your beach. Okay. And it was unnecessary on so many levels. So Molly, obviously the brother, Victor, saw part of that exchange. And when Victor and Molly get back to Lydia and Andrew, the brother basically is downplaying the whole thing and kind of saying without saying it that he thought Molly overreacted. He went as far as to say, are you sure it was about race? And this prompted Molly to say, I'm 100% sure it was about race. And unfortunately, Victor just could not let it go. He was so high and mighty on his little, you decide.
On supply, honey.
Oh my gosh. He was just like, yes, I experience racism, but I decide how it impacts me. And she was just sitting there like, but I can't decide how it impacts me. It's like, it was an annoying conversation that we have all had, where someone is minimizing your experience that you just had.
Yes.
And there's nothing like being on vacation and to have a racist incident when you're trying to have a break. I mean, it happens to all of us. It's annoying. And he wouldn't even give her 5 minutes to process before he's attacking her and saying her emotions were not valid. So needless to say, double date vacation over. Okay. Molly kind of leaves the situation. Andrew follows her. He's like telling his brother off. Why'd you have to pick a fight? One of the things Molly does say though before she leaves is, you all get to decide to be a person, to be people of color when it's convenient for you. And Andrew said, I think that, and she said different. And so anyway, so that was a little
something. She did not hold back. She did not hold back.
She did it, and you know what? And that remained unresolved in the episode, And so, in terms of what
it really did.
And this was the main, storyline of the trip, was just Molly and Andrew on vacation. There were a couple of other things that happened. Number one, there was a wonderful visit from Kim Fields' character. And listen, this character, maybe she's one of the questions you've developed, sis, because I'm like, what was the point, really? We should unpack her a little bit. But basically, Kim Fields' character is someone they meet on the plane on the way. She's going through a breakup. She's 3 days into her new life post-breakup. And she's a wreck. She's a wreck. She's crying on a plane. They see her on the resort a couple of times, and she's counting up her days of freedom. 4 days into my new life, like counting up. And then we get back to California, and we see her essentially reuniting, very likely with the person she just broke up with. We don't know for sure, but we're pretty sure that her new life without this man was over. It was about 4 days long. So so that happened.
She gave him 20 years of her life, she said, and I'm reclaiming every last one of them. Every last one of those things. I was like, well, go on me.
And I'm like,
I can now remember her name while I was watching the episode. I was like, I know that's right, Regine. I know that's right. I was like, that's so trifling.
Her name is Regine
right now.
She can't have no other name. Bro, her name is Regine. But her character, we can talk about it a little bit more. I think part of what she was there for is just to show somebody else falling into a vicious cycle. There's another person we should mention, which is Nathan. He ends up calling Andrew while they're on the trip. And Nathan calls. You'll recall that Nathan is Andrew's roommate. Nathan calls because he can't get the garage door opener to work, and he needs Andrew's help. And while the two of them are having a very brief exchange, we hear Issa in the background. So we know that Issa is hanging out with Nathan. Another character that popped their head out a little bit. We get back to the airport, vacation's over, Molly and Andrew are are at the luggage, picking up their luggage at the airport back in California, and they run into Lawrence. And they're like, hey, where you been? And Lawrence was like, yeah, I just got back from San Francisco. Where were y'all? They were like, oh, we were in Mexico. It was a very brief and awkward exchange.
Very awkward.
That was basically it. I think that's those are the main headlines. What was very mysterious was Issa being in the background of Nathan's call with Andrew. And there, that little few seconds of exchange between Nathan and Andrew was enough for Molly and Andrew to debrief Issa and Nathan's relationship a little bit. And we do find out that part of the reason that Nathan was away when he was away on that month, I still haven't forgiven him for his disappearing act. It turns out that he was taking care of some mental health things. And Nathan kept it pretty vague, because again, he's respecting his friend. And Andrew kept it pretty vague, respecting his friend. And he was also very quick to kind of say, no, I don't know if Issa knows, because that's between Nathan and Issa.
Come on.
He was like, Molly, don't put us in the middle of this.
It's not my business. It's not my business.
At all.
Andrew, that was pivotal.
Yeah.
And he was dropping nuggets in this episode. Let me tell you.
He really was.
I said, go ahead, Andrew. Please do. Please do.
Listen, shut that right now. Okay. Ooh. And the last person who was in the episode but not was Molly's therapist. Molly did have a moment on the beach after the interaction with Andrew's brother, where she does call her therapist and say, you know what, therapist, Dr. Shonda, I am having a hard time letting go of things, and I really could use a session. I know it's been a while. So we know she hasn't been getting therapy. She says that. It's been a while, is what she said, and she is ready to get her sessions rolling again. So something on the trip, kind of triggered her to reach out to her therapist. I think those are the main storylines, sis. Did I hit them all?
I think you did. One thing I do want to add is that Lawrence, as he was walking out of that there door, he said, can you meet for drink? So now
he called somebody as he was leaving the airport. And he was like, I've been thinking about you. Are you free to grab a drink soon?
Mm-hmm. And it was like, uh-oh, who is that?
Mm-hmm. And that was how the episode was
already out for episode 8, because they put him out so fast. So we know who that was on the other end. But at first, I was like, is that Condola or Issa? I said, because it was a little too romantic to be Derek. When the episode first ended.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I've been thinking about you. There was an undertone.
Mm-hmm. There was an undertone. But we do know from at least what they're showing us is that conversation was with Issa, because it looks like it's a Lawrence and Issa episode next time. But we'll see what happens.
Nice.
But thank you so much, sis. That was so good. Thank you for that recap. That was perfect. And one shout out I want to give was to the man that was sitting on the airplane behind Molly and Andrew. Let me tell you something. He was playing. He was asleep. He was asleep on that plane. Shout out, sir. You were playing that part. I don't know who you are, airplane sleep man, but you were asleep.
You better sleep. You better sleep.
Okay. And I think Ray Jean's character,
Kim Fields.
I think Kim Fields' character was there to do what Insecure does best. Put these random people in your path and in your life. There's no real reason. It makes me think of Issa's episode where you had George and the pregnant lady from the grocery store. It's like these random characters that just come in and will forever be a part of your trip. Because I'm sure if you go and think back on the trip now in Mexico, you're going to be like, remember that lady that was getting a divorce, but then she wasn't when she got to the airport? It's always going to be a part of your trip. You have those interactions. So I think that's what she was there for.
Yeah.
I think she was there to just be what Insecure does best. It's just a random person that you're like, what is happening right now? But it's so real life. I
Mm-hmm.
remember one time I was on an airplane. Before I got off, I had this lady's contact information. She had bought me some of those little drinks that you get on a
Don't
plane.
blame that lady. Don't
Listen,
blame that lady. That's you.
yeah,
Listen,
she
y'all
bought
need
them
to
for me.
know. Y'all need to know. If y'all run into Brittany, get ready for some chit chat. Okay.
Listen,
We are from
I did.
Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Brittany moved down south, became a Southern belle, and now she cannot not talk to strangers.
Listen, this was so long ago. I was
And
in college.
no,
I wish
Brittany engaging.
I wish I would go back in time, okay, and call that lady because she had a vacation house in Florida she was gonna let my friends get for free. But I never did it. I never did it. I wish I had that lady
Because she
card.
was a
Friends, if
stranger.
you're watching this video and you still have that vacation house in Florida, you let me know. I'm ready. I'm ready.
I hope she don't call you. I hope she
She's
don't
gonna,
call you.
she's gonna call.
Mm-mm.
She's gonna call.
You need to learn a valuable lesson about talking to strangers. You really did.
I just thought because talking to strangers has got me in trouble recently.
She stayed on it. She
I need to
stayed on it.
and so well we will just so that you guys that was we haven't got a chance. So you're in for another episode where we haven't got a chance to debrief. So
We did not debrief.
we did not debrief this episode. Sorry, not sorry. Sorry, not sorry.
That's
Okay.
okay.
Okay. So let's jump into some of these questions. So, do you think Molly should have run after Issa or reached out in that moment? Like when Issa got in the car, text her like, I just saw you. Where are you going? Do you think that she should have done that?
No.
So
No.
I agree with you 100%. No.
Mm.
And the reason why I say no is because you can't force someone to be ready for a conversation. And quiet as kept, Molly is not ready for that conversation because her immediate, when she saw Issa pull up and get out the car, it was immediate defense. She turned her back to the door a little and started messaging on her phone as if she
Yep.
was doing something. And she was like, here we go. She was already in defense mode, ready
Yep.
to attack. You cannot be like that when you're trying to have a civil conversation to discuss what has just happened. So I think that that is going to be I'm happy that they did not have that conversation. How do you think is this?
You know, I think that Molly owes Issa a huge apology. And I
Yes.
think that even if they never have a full reconciliation, close the chapter, renew the chapter, clarifying conversation, even if they never have that
A whole new book.
conversation, Molly needs to acknowledge the fact that she was out of line. She was out of line. She overreacted. She picked the wrong time to steal Issa's focus with angry energy, and she owes Issa an apology. And so I guess no, that wasn't the time, because a happenstance running into each other almost lets them both off the hook a little too much, you know? On some level, I wish Issa would have just walked right in and not let Molly's presence derail her, whatever it was she was about to do.
Getting her a little
Get
something
your
to
food.
eat.
Get your food, girl.
Get your Ethiopian food, girl. Don't
Okay.
let it stop you. That's your restaurant too.
That's right. Molly don't own that restaurant. But on the other hand, it's like Molly owes her an apology. And I do think that you decide whether you want certain energy in your day. And I think she didn't feel like it. And I think Molly obviously didn't either. Because it's just what you said. So she turned her back instead of just acknowledging that she saw Issa coming in.
That's it. Goodness.
So no, I think that wasn't the time. Maybe it wasn't the time.
That's good, sis. I like that. So my next question is, well, more so statement. Well, just what are your thoughts on Molly's words about Issa? And so the words I'm talking about are, even though Issa was not in this episode, like my sis said, she has a presence. First, because Molly was talking about her twice.
Mm-hmm.
And then secondly, because we heard her in the background on the telephone call saying, "Ooh, skip it." You don't even have to see Issa to know what her face looked like when she
Yeah.
saw this. Like you don't have to know what her body language looked like at all, because we're getting used to who Issa's character is
And it
over
does
these years.
make me feel some affection for Andrew that he has a skip it in his basement.
Listen,
Thank you, Andrew.
thank you, Andrew. Okay.
Hashtag 80s baby. That's good. That's very good.
And so I really appreciated that too, just them adding that in. So you know who their target market is. You know who their audience is in this show. I will say though that, so Molly's words, one thing she was saying as soon as she, we talked about her turning her back, and then it was hilarious, the song that came on whenever you saw. You know exactly what I'm talking about right now. The song that came on whenever Issa was walking away, you heard, it's by Chris O'Bannon, and it's called SADD. And listen, I don't know if we're gonna use those words on here, but it's talking about putting the male genitalia in your mouth. So I just she was upset. So the song was was perfect for the moment.
Yeah.
For what it was trying to be. Then you get to her being at home at her apartment with Andrew, and you hear her words that she says, "Issa avoided me like I was a job."
A real job.
What do you mean? That block party wasn't work? Were her being a property manager? Driving for Lyft, so being an entrepreneur? What are we saying right now?
So much judgment. So much
judgment, so much hate, right? And then later on, when she hears Issa's voice in the background on Nathan and Andrew's FaceTime, she then goes, "She's back with Nathan. There goes Issa, always being messy." Molly, what's happening here?
What is happening?
What's going on? You haven't talked to her in many days by this point. Like, I'm not saying that it's not going to take long for you to process, but she's still on the forefront of your mind. You're with your man in a hotel. You're with your man in an apartment. You're packing for a trip.
Yeah.
Like, so I really was disappointed. I understood because you're upset. And at this point in time, a lot of times when people are wrong, because I can say for myself, when you're wrong and you don't want to admit that you're wrong, anything that this person does at this point, you're ready to pick out. You're ready to pick whatever they've done, instead of picking the one big thing, which is yourself. We've all been there. We've all done that. And so we're just watching Molly process that. But baby, it is negative.
Yeah.
It is negative, and it is annoying, quite frankly.
It really is. It really is. And she says it's part of, it's probably, so we talked just for a second earlier about the fact that she called her therapist, and I'm happy she did. I mean,
yes.
At the end of the day, the amount of anger that fills Molly, just at the naming of Issa's name, as soon as Issa comes up, Molly is so angry. She's so angry. I mean, Andrew is a pro at changing the subject, and just reminding her, we created a boundary. We're not talking about Issa on this trip. But it is just about Molly having so much raw anger, so much raw anger. And it's just like, gosh, you know, you're ashamed of your behavior because you should be. And so, but you need to be moving on through the mourning process. Move from anger into some of these other phases, you know, so that you can get to acceptance and then apologize to your friend.
Yes.
You know?
And you two can discuss what has been going on. And also, when Molly was like, does Issa know about his mental health thing? Well, guess what, Molly? That was the same day that she found out when you, if we're going back to season 3, when you told Nathan to leave. Now you were doing the
would have told her. Maybe he would have told her.
But Nathan, when he came back, he did tell her. When Nathan and Issa had that conversation, he did tell her that there were some things that he had to deal with, that he had to go away for. And he apologized. It doesn't make it right, that you left. And you left without warning. And you were still alive, but she just didn't hear from you. So, but it still was, guess what, Molly? You don't even know about that conversation. So you're worried about Issa being absent from your life. You've been absent from hers too.
Yep.
You're not wanting to tell her stuff. She's not wanting to tell you things either. So you don't know what they've gone through in this amount of time to have reconciled.
Yeah.
And even where she has him in her life. So, you know, but yeah, that was like, I was looking at Molly like, yo, you are tripping.
Yeah.
You were low-key tripping.
Yeah.
So next question. Do you think Molly came down on her secretary too hard? I felt like she did. And I felt like it was a lashing out. When you speak to someone that reports to you in that way, I think we've all reported to people before, right? If someone who you are reporting to speaks to you in that way, I can speak for myself. My level of respect for you has either diminished completely or it has greatly decreased. You always have to speak with someone with respect and allow for mistakes, because we've not had this type of interaction with Karen before. We've not had a situation where Karen has forgot something or done something wrong. If anything, when Molly first came in, Karen was making sure she had information. So then begs the question, you know, Molly, are you paying attention to your surroundings at work? Because sometimes you need to, as you're consumed with yourself, see what's going on with someone that helps you with all your information at work. Who's your go-to person at work? So I thought that her definitely needing to correct her and say, hey, this makes me look bad, you know, whatever you need to. But the way that she spoke with her was a borderline disrespectful. And I didn't appreciate it. What do you think?
I agree with you, sis. I mean, nobody needs to talk to anybody like that at work. You know, peer, subordinate, whatever. That tone was unnecessary. But that said, I will say that, you know, you need an assistant to manage your calendar. You do. And I just, so as much as like Molly, that was unfortunate. I also feel like there are just a couple of basic things you do need your assistant to be on top of. And I just feel like
I agree.
I feel like scheduling is just one of those things. So let's say your assistant forgets. Yeah, if there's like a special project of some sort, and that, you know, that the error happens in that special project zone, you know, it's like, okay, we were doing a special project, but calendar management, I just again, there's no excuse for Molly's tone, but I do think that there are certain things that assistants have to be pretty damn near perfect at. And I think like calendar management in a chaotic workspace, we need the calendar managed. So I felt the frustration of a surprise meeting, you know, when you have a vacation day scheduled. Hello, you know. So that was a bad day. Now part of me though wonders if there's a bigger story about this meeting. If maybe they didn't want Molly there. Maybe they scheduled it intentionally on her first day out of the office. There, honey. And because there are a lot of reasons they could have shown us that scene. Part of it could have been so we could see how Molly just blows up all the time. The other reason could have been for us to just have a headline on the fact that things are happening at work where perhaps Molly is being left out intentionally. So maybe there was a larger plan about why, you know, she didn't get the notice about that meeting. So maybe there's a deeper story.
Or another thing that actress saying that says is maybe showing that Molly has begun to show Andrew that he truly is her main priority. That he truly is her main priority.
Yeah.
Maybe because she didn't have any work on this trip with her. Normally we're used to Molly pulling out a laptop or something like that. Yeah. Like she didn't do that on this trip. She completely disconnected. So it's like, is the job experience, are they feeling some of what we knew was this relentless Molly? Now a little drawback because she's like, my priorities have shifted. Partner was important, but is it? But in her statement, she did still let us know that she's very important. It's very important to her about how she looks to other people.
Yep. Big time.
And her interaction with Lawrence at the end lets me know that, of course, he hasn't been around. She hasn't been around. She's embarrassed about how she acted at that at the block party.
Lawrence wasn't at the block party, as far as we know.
Listen, as far as we know, Frisco. He said Frisco.
So their awkwardness, you know, is because it's like, my gosh, how does she interact with him? Because Issa was her channel to him, you know, and so it's her interaction with Lawrence. I mean, it was bound to be a little awkward, you know, running into your best friend's ex on the street when he isn't as ex as we all thought he was, maybe, you know. And not to mention that as far as she knows, you know, she doesn't know what's going on with Issa and Lawrence. She doesn't know what's going on with Lawrence and Condola, you know. So it was bound to be awkward. Yep. It was bound to be awkward.
So true. So true. Well, listen, as we move forward, listen, let's discuss. Tell me your thoughts on Molly and Andrew's communication and their sex life. Listen, Molly and Andrew were molldrew, okay?
Molldrew. Hashtag molldrew.
Hashtag molldrew. They were center stage, okay? They were center stage on this episode. And so on two sides, on two points. One, their communication to me is good in the sense that Molly, for example, on the plane was able to say, listen, I'm tired. I don't want to do all that stuff tomorrow. Tonight. I want to just get in and chill. And he's like, but do you want to be like that when we first get there? He's had this whole thing planned. And she's like, all right, cool. I appreciate her being able to
push and pull. Yeah, they can disagree.
Yes. Yeah.
And bend.
I appreciate that. But what I do not appreciate is because I was hopeful that Andrew didn't say anything to Molly about what happened at the block party in the moment because it would have been inappropriate, like how she approached Issa. But my hope was that this episode, we were going to see them discuss that. They did not. Also, after everything happened at the pool, and Molly with her statement of, you're different. these things that need to be real conversations, if they're having them, we didn't hear them. Okay, we're not hearing these conversations. So that is something that concerns me, that we'll talk about the small stuff in terms of, okay, I'll hang out, but there are things that are major that really need to be discussed. That Andrew, maybe you don't like conflict. You seem pretty chill.
Mm-hmm.
And you see that Molly can get crazy.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
We also have seen you, Andrew, walk away when the sheet got too hot.
Yep.
When Molly didn't want to talk about your sister. So I just that their communication, and as to your point, says it does concern me, because
Mm-hmm.
it's like having this just just about your relationship altogether. You're
Mm-hmm.
not having all that communication.
Mm-hmm.
So I see that I am having some technical difficulties here, people. My computer shut me off and then put me into the space-time continuum. I, I don't know what has happened. So I listen. I watched Star Wars. I watched Star Wars, and I think my computer still thinks I'm there.
Girl, you were just in a place far long ago in some
In a
distant
galaxy,
galaxy, long time ago.
I was in a galaxy far, far away.
Far, far away, girl.
I'm back. I'm back.
Welcome.
The other thing of this is this question: is this sex life here, honey? Listen, we got some fingering on the plane, vibrators, beads, lotions, uh, sex on the balcony. Finding out Andrew likes to be dominated. He likes to be a sub. He likes to be told what to do. And then Molly, which at that point when this part came up on the screen, I said her real name. I said Yvonne. Hold on. First you gotta eat ass, and she turned around and spread them cheeks. I said, whoop, wait,
You know,
wait.
you know what you're seeing here. You're seeing
Let me see.
a relationship that is when time has passed. I mean, at the end of the day, sex with the same person, even if they're highly skilled and, studying up on magazines and websites, it can get a little boring. And so you do have to evolve your sex life, for a long-term relationship. You really do. And so honestly, I felt like that was just one of those things that happens when you've been in a relationship for a while. And I think they kind of showed that.
It was a good thing. I just was like, whoa,
Yeah.
okay.
That conversation where it was like, she's like, oh, I'm about to introduce a feather into our sex play. And he's like, oh, I bought toys, multiple
Hilarious.
toys. Because it was just an indicator that they both were feeling a need to spice things up a little bit, change it up a little bit.
Do you think it's too soon though for them to already feel like that?
I do not. I don't.
What is it? 3-4 months in now?
Yeah, it's a couple months. I mean, timing makes sense to me. I'll tell you this. It was so interesting that you framed this question about both their general communication and also their sex life, because even when it came down to both of them bringing sex accessories on the trip, again, not on the same page, and so it's just like they're becoming more intimate. They are progressing in a lot of ways. They're both pushing each other out of their comfort zones a little bit, just in terms of like the intimacy, which is great. But it's kind of what you said, sis. You just worry that they're not having some of the depth of communication that they probably should have by now. Yeah. And I gotta say, it's not surprising that Molly has not been seeing her therapist. Because that is the kind of thing that if she was debriefing Andrew with her therapist, she would have been getting some feedback about how to move into a place where they can have productive conflict. which is
Absolutely.
kind of like they're avoiding they seem to be avoiding some of these tough conversations.
Absolutely. Which that is a great segue, sis, into the next question, which is, what do you think caused Molly to call her therapist?
Yeah.
That was that, and so I think
Hmm.
we've kind of talked about that already, just
Hmm.
what that actually looks like. And it it's like, okay. Um, I think part of that is Molly owning that there are things that she is dealing with that are in on a deeper level that
Mm,
are impacting all of these things,
mm,
that are making me not have the hard conversation, me not being able to apologize, me not being able to have getting so upset at my secretary at work, me getting so, just these different things that are piling on, her not even wanting to face Andrew's brother the next
hmm.
day after that conversation. Just what there are just some things that I just feel like she's like, okay, which let me tell you guys, although many people are upset with Molly, which we can all get, right, because we're so emotionally invested in this show.
Totally.
um, we can see that this is growth. Because what is that, season 2, I believe, or season 1, where Molly is talking about a
Insulted.
therapist,
Insulted at the thought of a therapist.
to where she's sitting on this beach by herself with her wet and wavy in, okay, hair on point. Costume designer killed it this episode, okay. Said, she's calling her. I haven't seen you in a while. I'd like to make an appointment. You
Mm-hmm.
guys, that's growth. So I can't get upset with somebody's process. I
Mm-hmm.
can't. But what do you? Well, since you kind of already talked about
Yeah.
why you
I
thought
think
she talked.
we've all kind of had that experience where you kind of walk away and you have a moment of, can I have handled myself differently?
Mm-hmm.
You know? And so I think what she realized is that she's been having a lot of those moments where she looks back and wonders if she could have handled things differently.
Yeah.
And I think that's what prompts her to call. What prompts her to call is, the only things that seem to ruin this trip for any stretch of time, they were me. It was me
Mm.
bringing up
Ooh,
a friend
girl.
that is in flux. It was me, letting the towel ladies' racism get to me. And she's like, you know what? Andrew's brother, Victor, he kind of said it. You decide how much things impact you. And so I think it was just her saying, gosh, there's a lot that is happening and I'm not processing it. I'm not moving past things.
Mm.
She calls a therapist. So I agree with you, sis. I mean, it is hashtag growth for show with
Man,
Molly. Now, I
man.
just think she needs to talk to that therapist about what went down with Issa, because
I hope.
because Andrew ain't doing it, but somebody needs to tell her, and maybe it's one of the girlfriends, you know, maybe it's Kelly, maybe
Yeah.
it's Tiffany. Somebody needs to tell her you were really out of line, and you owe Issa an apology. You do, yeah, just yeah.
Wait, Kelly. The way Kelly would say, "You was wrong for that, bitch." That's
Yeah,
what she would say.
and
That's what she would say.
to hear that from
Mm-hmm.
someone that she will listen to.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm
That's
happy she
big.
called the therapist.
Me too. Me too. So you brought it up again about her conversation with Andrew and just what sparked this conversation. Um, so I just wanted to know your thoughts on the display or and the discussion of race and culture in this episode. Um,
Mm.
I asked that on a broader level because when, for some reason, when Yvonne had forgotten something when she was walking into work and she was on the phone with Andrew and she was telling him to get something, and she said something about, a water view. I couldn't
It
really
was
understand.
lotion. It was lotion. She was telling Andrew to pack lotion. And he
Okay,
had apparently said, but there's lotion at the hotel. And she said, hotel lotion is for white people because it's watery.
thank you. Okay. Because I was like, I'm missing her say something. I'm
Yeah,
not here. I'm missing a piece of
it
this
was lotion.
conversation. So that her talking about race then, and then we get into Mexico. We're being fully immersed in the culture. It is gorgeous. They're going to parties. Of course, I'm sure a little bit of it is touristy because you're not going into the actual neighborhoods and things like that because you're on a resort, but you're getting a chance to see those things. And then, of course, you have her interaction with the towel girl. So you guys, like I said earlier, I rewound that part several times. And Molly was already approaching when right before they were getting their towels. And so she did see that they didn't have to give their key. Because as she's walking up, she's able to see that entire exchange.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I said, I was like, you know what? This is something that happens to Black people often, namely Black women, while we get the angry Black woman stereotype, right? Especially her being darker skinned, is you're seeing the outcry. You're seeing the aftermath of the wrong that has already been done to me. And so now I look irate. Now I look upset for no reason, but you've just done an injustice and you've done something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Now, part of me wants to go, Molly, girl, you on vacation. You know they rude everywhere you go. Get your key card, get your child, be done, and then report it at some place. But don't let it mess up your feng shui. Don't let it mess up your zen, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And the other part of me is, no, girl, call it out when it needs to be called out. She was wrong.
Yeah.
And so it's just those two sides, but then it brings into this conversation that she's having in the pool with Andrew and his family. And I'm listening to Andrew's brother talk to her. And honestly, you guys, I'm just going to say it. It's really how oftentimes a white person speaks to a Black person whenever they're speaking about an injustice. And so it was really hard to kind of hear this conversation. It made me think about a podcast I seen, shout out to the Grapevine, where they were talking about Black American and Asian American and just that relationship and what it looks like and how tumultuous it is. And how, where's the support? She said those very words that are spoke all the time. You want to be a person of color when you need us, but then when something is happening, where are you? And so just this mindset, and even Andrew's brother, maybe not even seeing how he has benefited from being the myth of the model minority, being that you're educated, you obviously have money because you're paying for everything on this trip. Like, so whatever you're doing it and you're doing it well. It doesn't dismiss your heart for other things, but just understanding in that moment, you're not even trying to hear a little bit of Molly's plight or understanding that this is not a separate session for her. This is not a separate issue or interaction. This is the sum of interactions. Anytime as a Black person, you're experiencing something in that way, it is extremely unfortunate, but it's like PTSD where you recall all the other accounts that have happened to you and then stories you've heard of other people and then the things that you see and you're bombarded with on the news and the media and things like that. You're seeing it all the time. And so when something like that happens and it catches you off guard, you need a moment to process. But only someone who is gentle enough or just cares anything about another person and their actual feelings or emotions are going to give you that opportunity and that space to have that conversation. So I just really thought they did a great job of bringing up race and culture and maybe not diving deep into those conversations all the way, but like Insecure does, always get things started or continue a conversation and highlight the actual culture that is happening right now, which is real crazy because they didn't know coronavirus was going to be happening right now. They didn't know that. It's so crazy how this show would have that conversation. And these are actual conversations that are happening right now as a result of the craziness that's going on in the world right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so true, sis. It really is a timely theme for them to introduce. I will say that the right reaction when a person has an experience like that, I think it's what Andrew and Lydia were doing. All they said was, "Oh, I'm sorry that happened to you. That's awful." Bullshit. And then you process it for a little while, and then you say to your person that's just been scorned, let it go. There's nothing we can do about it. We can report that person, but that's our only action item here because we cannot shake the racism out of her. And so so that's the process we all normally would go through. And so I think what happened there was that, it's like Andrew's brother, Victor, he just couldn't be he didn't respond in the way you need someone to respond when you go through something like that. And honestly, the whole thing could have been 2 minutes and then everybody could have moved past it, but she needed to be in community for just a minute there to process it. And knowing Molly, maybe she wouldn't have processed it quickly. I think she would have tried at least, but she couldn't even be in community for a moment in that. Lydia and Andrew were rising up to be in community with her in that moment, and Victor just couldn't do it. And so she couldn't let it go, and he couldn't do it, and he just couldn't do it. You can already see what kind of person he is. That kind of person that just has to always play devil's advocate. It's like really
saying devil's advocate. I was like, this is not the time.
Oh my gosh. I mean, listen, we all know that person. We all have people in our lives that are like that, but it's like, gosh, I mean, could she just have a minute to process what happened? So yeah, I mean, I will say in general, I thought Molly's rapport with the family was going well up until Victor showed his ass, but I thought it was going well. Again, I found Lydia to be delighttul, and I even appreciated when Molly made that statement about, she said, yeah, you're only, you're a person of color when it's convenient for you. That Lydia was like, what did you say? Or something. Like, I just appreciated that Lydia was they made her such a complete.
I'm like, uh-oh. Like, it was like, are we going there?
Yeah, she was, I appreciated her role in the scene, And she's another one of those actresses that you've seen her a million times. I don't know her name. We will look it up before we post this episode. But that actress that played Lydia, we've seen her a million times. She's very familiar. We know
good.
We know her. So anyway, I thought she really did a good job.
They did a great interaction.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, that brings us to our last question, which we've talked about, brings us in, speaking of Lydia, into just thoughts on Andrew's interaction with his family.
Mm-hmm.
Another part of that culture piece was hearing Andrew for the first time speaking in his native language. That is so cool. Just having that element in the show. Mm-hmm. And also that element of what it looks like to interracially date, especially for a Black woman.
Mm-hmm.
And then not just any Black woman, a woman that is darker skinned. What does that look like? And so I appreciated his interaction with his family. The reason why I said earlier that that Andrew was dropping nuggets was because he said to Molly when they were in the room the next morning after the fight, the argument, and he said that I've already talked to him. He apologizes. He was like, but that's just who he is. That is my brother, but I would never let it continue. Mm-hmm. I would never let our conversation, that argument, fester. That's the word he used. I would never let it fester. Meaning I'm handling it then and we're done. And we're moving forward. Which to me was another reason why Molly called her therapist.
Mm-hmm.
She lets things fester.
Big time.
First season, when she was mad at Issa for telling her that she needed to go to therapy, She acting all sour, don't want to sing those songs, drinking more than she would, getting some little dude to go to sleep with, all this acting out, festering, letting things fester. Fester to the point where at your so-called best friend's event, that you're approaching her to beat her up. You're not just about to go do a disagreement, honey. You were ready to throw fists. So you want these hands? Like that's how y'all were talking.
Yeah.
So I appreciate his interaction with his family. Also that his sister, and I'm looking forward to that story developing, that they found her at least, and that she's in Seattle. And you can tell sister's kind of a go with the flow, go with the wind type of person. So we're like, she liked the sandwich there, and so she started working there. I was like, I said, okay, we're learning more about this character that we do not know who she is. And I would like to say, if we ever meet this character, I would love for her to be Aquafina. Aquafina would kill that role. And still, every scene that she's in, because she's hilarious. But I think she would be so perfect because even in her own show, she has that laissez-faire type of attitude and personality. So, what did you think?
That kind of personality, though, really does not work well with the Victor type. That we know. So I think if you just start to round out this family picture, and honestly, we can probably almost assign them a birth order. I would bet that Victor is the oldest. Yes. I would bet that the sister, who's lost in the sauce, is the youngest. And I think Andrew is the middle. I think middle children are peacemakers, and they just kind of, try to make sure everybody can get through the vacation. Okay.
Don't trying to put yourself in there, trying to just.
Listen, we didn't choose this role. We didn't choose this life. But middle children, this is where we are. We get to keep we get to get on the box. Hey, we got to keep it. Okay. And so, you start to think about why she doesn't come around. And I could just see, I'm just wondering if Victor is a part of it. Because I could just see him devil's advocating her, It's just like anyway, that's the worst kind of personality type. It's just the person who just will just pick for the sake of picking. For the sake of picking. Oh my gosh.
I myself, if I meet you and we're having interaction and you are a self-proclaimed asshole, my interaction with you is very minimal to none.
Yep.
Because I can't do. Because you're that at this point, I never know when you're being genuine.
Yeah.
If you're just being contrary to be contrary, or if you actually have a point by this, what you're saying.
I am just exhausted at the thought of the people that I know that are like that. It is exhausting to be around a person that will just keep playing devil's advocate in everything. Just constantly, why? Oh my gosh. So anyway, I bet that sister is like, I'm saying not getting along with Victor. I mean, that's annoying.
Which is funny that he's the one that's in touch with her. So all of that is crazy. He's still bro at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
Well, guys, we really appreciate you for being in this review with us. Coming back always, we love it. We love to see your comments. Please like and share this. Make sure to subscribe to both of our channels. Any of your comments, anything that you were feeling down about, whether you agree with us, completely disagree with us, please let us know. We do want to hear it. Be respectful. Because I am a part of the block ministry, okay? All right, as long as we know, and the elite ministry as well. But as long as we don't have to worry about all of it, is all because that's what we're hearing. We're hearing love, and we're just having a good time discussing a show that is really pivotal for the culture. And so we just appreciate that, and we want to celebrate that. So with that being said, just let them know where they can find you.
You can find me on Instagram and Facebook at The Only Genia Writes. And maybe by the time you see this, I'll be on Twitter too. I'm working on it.
Yes.
Hashtag late.
Listen,
Very late.
better late than never. It's always what I've heard. It's always what I've heard.
Yeah.
Um, and you can find me, Be Right Breeze, on all social media platforms. That is Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat. Listen, hit me up. Let us know and follow us. So with that being said, thanks you guys for listening to our review of Insecure Season 4, Episode 7, Lowkey Trippin'. Have a good night, you guys.
Bye.